Chosen one, you did not come across this by chance. You were guided to this moment. There is a clear distinction between those two realities. By the time this message reaches its conclusion, you will fully grasp why that distinction carries more weight than nearly everything else I am about to share. Most individuals move through their days making small decisions, what to open, where to focus, what to allow into their space. And usually, those decisions are entirely their own. But there are times when something greater quietly takes control, without any announcement, and places you directly in front of a message you were not actively searching for, yet have been waiting for far longer than you realize. This is one of those times. Before I continue, let me ask you something. Over the past several months, or perhaps even longer, have you felt that where you currently stand is no longer where you truly belong? Not in a dramatic or easily explainable way. Not in a way you could casually describe at a dinner table, without sounding unusual. Just a quiet, persistent awareness beneath everything that whispers, this is no longer it. Something else is pressing against the boundaries of my life from the outside. Something ahead. If that feeling resonates with you, stay with me, because what I am about to share has been placed before you today for a reason. There is a specific message meant for someone receiving this right now. Someone standing at the threshold of a new season, sensing the pull of something they cannot yet clearly see, but also cannot ignore. The message is this. God said, prepare yourself. A new place, new connections, new blessings, a new life, not as distant possibilities, but as a declaration already set into motion, arranged long before you had the words to understand it, before you felt prepared, before you had any proof that it was safe to move forward. I want you to remain until the end of this message, because I'm going to reveal the specific signs that confirm this new season has already begun in your life. I will give you a clear framework to help you distinguish between escaping something and being truly called forward. I will walk you through what God does with the people who will enter your next season, and why the clearing that has been taking place around you is not a loss. It is preparation. And before this ends, I will speak something over your life that I believe you have needed to hear before you could take your next step. What you are about to receive is worth your attention. Now, let me show you where this truly begins. There is a moment that many chosen ones in this season can recognize when they pause and reflect. It is rarely the moment you expect. It is not always marked by a dramatic shift, a crisis, or a sign in the sky. Sometimes it appears in the most ordinary way, an average morning, coffee in hand, standing by a window, looking at the same view you have seen for years, and something within you quietly says, I no longer belong here, not because the view is unpleasant, not because your life is wrong, but because something within you has grown beyond the limits of that space, and the space can no longer contain it. Like a room that once fit you perfectly, but over time, without you even noticing, became too small. And then one day, you wake up and you can feel the walls. Maybe it was not a moment at a window. Maybe it was a conversation with someone you care about, where you found yourself nodding and smiling while a part of you felt completely elsewhere, not because your care disappeared, but because you quietly outgrew the limits of that exchange. Perhaps it happened at work, within a community you once called home, or in a gathering where everyone else seemed settled while you felt like a stranger within your own life. You may not have been able to name it then. You may still struggle to fully define it now, but you felt it, and that feeling, that specific, persistent sense of unease, is not restlessness. It is not ingratitude. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you or with the people around you. It is recognition. It is your spirit recognizing a calling it received long before your mind could put it into words. Now, let me show you 5 signs that confirm what you've been sensing is real. The first sign is that the conversations around you have begun to feel smaller. Not because the people themselves are lesser, and not because they have done anything wrong, but because the topics that once fully engaged you and felt meaningful now seem like a language you no longer speak with ease. You listen, you participate, yet a part of you always feels slightly ahead, standing at the doorway of a room that others are still fully inside, wondering when it became so difficult just to remain present. The second sign is an unexplainable pull towards something you cannot yet define. Not a clear destination, not a structured plan, just an inner compass that refuses to settle. A quiet knowing that says not here, without yet revealing where there is. And every time you try to dismiss it as imagination or immaturity, it returns. Patient, steady, unaffected by your attempts to reason it away. The third sign is that your waking dreams have grown louder. These are the visions that show you a version of your life that has not yet unfolded. The ones that feel less like imagination and more like memory. The ones that leave you with a deep longing, not rooted in sadness, but in something sacred. A sense of anticipation, as if something within you already knows what is coming and is leaning toward it. The fourth sign is that what once felt like home now feels more like a waiting room, like a place that fulfilled its purpose beautifully, carried you through everything it was meant to hold, and is now quietly, gently letting you go. The peace you once experienced there has begun to feel less like arrival and more like the stillness that comes right before movement. The fifth sign is a new intolerance for old patterns. The drama that once drew you and no longer appeals to you. The environments that once felt normal now feel suffocating. And instead of feeling guilty about that, which I know you've been part of, you feel almost relieved, as if your spirit is drawing a boundary that your mind has not yet fully understood. If you saw yourself in even 3 of those 5 signs, I can sense it already. Acknowledge it, not for me, but for yourself. Because the moment you give a name to what you're feeling, you begin to move toward it. Now I want to take you somewhere that will reshape everything you have been experiencing, because this command, the one pressing against your life right now, is not new. It is one of the oldest divine instructions ever given. In the original Hebrew, the language of the earliest scriptures, there's a phrase that appears at one of the most defining moments in human history. God was speaking to a man who had built a life, who had a land, a circle, a family structure that had supported him for decades. And what God said to him was essentially this: go to yourself, not simply move to another place, but move toward the version of yourself that cannot be formed where you currently are. Move toward the person you were created to become, the one waiting on the other side of your obedience. The man who received this message did not know his destination. The ancient text makes that clear. He set out without knowing where he was going. He had direction, but no detailed map. He had a calling, but not a complete plan. His name was Abraham, and what God asked him to leave behind reflects almost exactly what is being asked of you now. Leave your land, your location. Leave your people, your circle. Leave your father's house, the identity, provision, and structure that once defined you. And in exchange, receive what your current place could never hold. Abraham did not act because he was free of fear. He acted in spite of his fear. He moved forward not because it was easy, but because the person he was meant to become could not be shaped where he was. The same is true for you. Now you might be thinking, I understand the message. I recognize the signs. But what exactly is this new place? What does that really mean? I am going to answer that fully. But first, you need to see something that many people misunderstand about this message. The new place you are being called toward is not primarily a physical location on a map. And once you understand what it truly is, the way you move in this season will completely change. If what you have heard so far has confirmed something within you, take a moment to acknowledge it. Not for me, but because someone else may be waiting to encounter the same message, and your agreement helps carry it forward. Now, let me explain what this new place actually represents. Most people here go to a new place and immediately think of geography, a different city, a new house, a new address on another street. And sometimes, yes, it is exactly that. Sometimes the call is literal, physical, and specific. But here's what I have come to understand, and I believe this is what will shift everything for you. If you move your body to a different place but carry the same mindset with you, you have not truly changed locations. You have simply taken your old life with you. Think of it like a navigation system, one that does not judge how long you've been headed in the wrong direction or how many exits you miss along the way. The only thing it asks is, where do you want to go from here? And without blame, without criticism, without making you feel foolish for past choices, it recalculates a new path from your exact current position. God is not standing over you frustrated about how long you stayed where you were. He is not reviewing your past and shaking his head. He is simply recalculating, guiding you forward from exactly where you are right now. But a true new place requires 3 things from you, and none of them are what most people expect. The first is this: You must be willing to leave behind a version of yourself that needed the old environment. That version of you was not wrong. Everything that person endured, learned, built, and carried during that time was real and necessary. But the next version of you, the one this new phase is meant for, cannot grow from the same foundation. A seed cannot remain in the same soil forever. At some point, it becomes a tree. And a tree needs different ground, more space, more air than the seed ever required. You have become the tree. And now you are being asked to stop trying to fit back into the container meant for a seed. The second requirement is this. You must release what you built there that was never meant to be permanent. Not everything. Some things move forward with you. The wisdom, the depth, the character formed through difficult seasons. Those are yours to carry. But some things were only meant for that chapter. Relationships that were shaped by who you used to be. Roles you stepped into because that season required someone to fill them. Versions of yourself that were sustained by agreements with people who are no longer growing in the same direction. Those things do not belong in the next chapter. And holding on to them is not a way of honoring them. It only delays your progress. The third, and this is the one that requires the most trust, is this. You must be willing to arrive before you fully understand the reason. Abraham lived in his new land for years before the full meaning of his assignment became clear. He arrived before the promise was completely revealed. The place itself became the classroom, and what it taught him about God and about himself could never have been learned from where he stood before. You're not meant to have all the answers before you move. The new place is not a reward for understanding. It is where understanding unfolds. Now, before you take any step in this season, I want to give you something practical. Something that will help you clearly discern what is actually happening within you right now. I call it the Relocation to Summit Protocol. 3 questions. Ask them honestly, and they will reveal more than any amount of overthinking ever could. The first question is this. Are you moving away from something, or are you being drawn towards something? Fear pushes you away. A calling pulls you forward. From the outside, they can appear identical. The same action, the same direction, sometimes even the same outcome. But internally, they feel completely different. Fear forces. A calling attracts. If what you are experiencing feels more like a pull forward than a push outward, then that is not fear disguised as faith. That is genuine direction. The second question is this. Does staying feel comfortable, or does it simply feel familiar? Comfort is real. It can indicate that you are exactly where you need to be in this season. But familiarity is not the same as comfort. Familiarity is merely the absence of the unknown. You can be quietly shrinking in a familiar environment and call it peace. You can carry a version of yourself that stopped evolving 2 years ago and label it stability. Be honest with yourself. Is the reason you are still here true peace? Or is it just that this place resembles something you have known for a long time? The third question is this. Does the pull toward what is new come with peace, or only with excitement? Excitement is real, but it fades when things become complicated. Peace is different. Peace remains after the excitement settles, when others around you do not understand, when the path is unclear, when your logical mind runs out of reasons. Yet something deeper still says go. That kind of peace does not come from preference. It comes from a higher source. Now, let me explain something about the sequence that most people misunderstand. They try to find the new people first. They think, if I could just find my community, the ones who understand me, the ones who speak my language, then I could move, then I would feel certain. Then it would not feel like free fall. But that is not how it works. The reason the right people have not fully appeared yet is not because they do not exist. It is because the version of you they are meant to connect with has not fully stepped forward yet. New people recognize a new version of you. They are aligned with who you are becoming, not who you have been. And if you step into your next chapter still wrapped in your old story, still operating from your old identity, still relating through past wounds, they will not recognize you. Not because they cannot see, but because you have not yet shown up as the person they were meant to meet. The shift in place happens first, then the people follow. And beneath all of this, beneath the questions of where, when, and how, there is something that often goes unspoken, something many chosen ones carry in this season. It is guilt. The guilt of stepping back from conversations that no longer align. The guilt of protecting your energy when people who knew your past version still expect access to it. The guilt of outgrowing a community, a relationship, or even a version of yourself. Not because anyone did anything wrong, but because you are no longer the same person. That guilt is real and it should not be dismissed, but it must be understood. Guilt is an emotion, and like all emotions, it can be accurate or it can be misplaced. When guilt keeps you tied to a version of yourself that you are being called to release, that is not conviction. It is attachment disguised as loyalty. You are allowed to outgrow a place. You are allowed to outgrow a circle. You are allowed to outgrow the version of yourself that others still expect you to be. You are allowed to protect what is being built within you, even when those who care about you cannot yet understand it. And you do not owe anyone, not a single person, an explanation for becoming who you were always meant to become. There is one more thing I want to introduce before we continue, and I will return to it in greater detail shortly. I have been looking into a concept in neuroscience that helps explain something I have observed about people in transition. Why some individuals, when they make a shift, seem to adjust almost immediately. The right opportunities begin to appear. The right connections start forming. Things align in ways that feel beyond coincidence. And why others carry their old patterns into a new environment and find that progress takes much longer. Not because they made the wrong move, but because something in their mind is still transmitting the old signal even after their circumstances have changed. There is a scientific reason behind that difference, and it may be one of the most important insights I share with you today. But first, you need to understand what is happening with the people in your life right now, because what's been fading around you, the circle that has grown quieter, the connections that have weakened, the relationships that have become unexpectedly distant, is not random loss. It is intentional preparation. And I want to approach this carefully because this is where many people struggle. They do not get stuck when leaving a place. They get stuck when releasing people. Because some of those who have become distant, some who are no longer as present or as close as they once were not negative influences. They were not harmful. They were not enemies. They were connections whose purpose had been fulfilled. And there's a kind of grief in that reality that is rarely acknowledged enough. The grief of a relationship that was genuine, that mattered, that carried you through important years of your life, and has now quietly, without conflict, reached its natural conclusion. Not because love disappeared, but because that chapter came to an end. Take a moment to sit with that. You are not wrong for mourning it. People who love deeply always grieve deeply. And the fact that you are grieving means you gave something real. That is not a weakness. It is evidence of someone who was fully present in the seasons they were given. But grief is not the same as permanence. And what is being removed during this clearing is not proof that love fails. It is proof that seasons change and that God is intentional enough about your future to make space before bringing something new in. Here is what this clearing often looks like from the inside. The first thing you may notice is relationships that simply begin to fade. No arguments, no dramatic endings, just a quiet distance that grows, no matter how much effort is made to close it. Conversations that once felt easy now take more energy than they give back. A connection that once felt balanced now feels one-sided, as if you are always the one reaching out. When this happens, you may feel lonely. You may start questioning yourself, replaying past interactions, wondering what you did wrong or what changed. But understand this. Do not try to force what is already finishing. Do not try to recreate closeness that is no longer forming naturally. Allow the space to open, because when you stop filling it with effort, you make room for something that will not require constant effort to sustain. And often, just when the silence feels the heaviest, when the circle around you has grown quiet, new people will begin to appear, not all at once, but gradually. The right individuals at the right time in the right place. The second pattern you may notice is relationships that begin to resist your growth. These may be people who genuinely care about you, but cannot understand where you're going. They interpret your growth as distance. They feel the shift and respond from their own fear, wanting you to remain the version of yourself they are familiar with. When this happens, doubt can arise. You may hear their concerns and begin to question yourself. You may wonder if they see something you are missing. You may think, maybe they are right. Maybe I am moving too fast. Maybe this desire is just pride disguised as purpose. Do not argue with them. Do not try to justify your path. Do not attempt to explain something they were not meant to understand. Because here is something important. In seasons of change, resistance from others, especially when it comes from fear rather than wisdom, can often be a sign that you are moving in the right direction. Not always, but often, because what is meant to stay the same rarely encounters resistance. Trust what is guiding you forward more than the voices asking you to remain where you are. The third pattern is a revealing of relationships that are not as deep as you once believed. People you trusted, people you thought understood you. But as you begin to grow, as you begin to expand into your purpose, they respond in ways that surprise you and sometimes hurt you. This can feel like betrayal, and it is painful. That should not be dismissed. But see it clearly. This revelation is not punishment. It is protection. It is far better to recognize these limitations now, before stepping into a new chapter, than to carry those connections forward and discover their boundaries when you're already in a place that requires more from the people around you. What is being cleared is not empty space. It is intentional space, prepared for the right people to enter. If you have already started noticing these patterns in your relationships, then what is happening in your life right now is not random. It is foundational. It is preparation for what is next. Now let me share a story. There was a woman named Ruth. She did not see herself as extraordinary. She had experienced loss. Her husband, her home, the future she once envisioned. She stood at a crossroads, literally on a path where her mother-in-law encouraged her to return to what was familiar, to a place where life at least made sense. But Ruth chose differently, not because she had a clear plan, not because she was shown exactly what would happen next. She chose to move forward because something within her knew that the unknown path, the one that required sacrifice, the one that made no logical sense, was the right one. She entered a land she did not know. She stepped into a field she had never seen before. And in that exact place, in that specific moment of moving forward before fully understanding, she encountered the person who would become part of the next chapter of her life, the part that had been left open by everything she had lost. That person was not waiting for her in the place she left behind. He was positioned in the place she was sent to. And that is what you need to understand about the people meant for your next season. They are not where you currently are. They cannot meet you there. They are already positioned where you are being led, and they are waiting for a version of you that can only arrive after you move forward. Now, let me tell you what these people will feel like when you meet them. The first thing you will notice is that they will recognize you without needing a full explanation of who you are. Not your name, not your past, not your achievements or your history. There will be an immediate sense of familiarity, something deeper than the time you have known each other would suggest. The second thing is that they will challenge you in a way that does not diminish you. They will question your ideas without making you feel inadequate. They will speak truth to you, honest, direct truth, in a way that strengthens your sense of self rather than weakening it. The third thing is that they are already moving in the same direction you are heading toward. You will not need to pull them toward the vision. They are already living it, already thinking in that direction, already building within it. And when you arrive, it will feel less like starting over and more like reconnecting. The fourth thing, and this one may surprise you, is that around them, the new version of you will feel natural, not forced, not carefully controlled. You will not need to explain yourself or silence parts of who you are as you may have done in other environments. You will feel, perhaps for the first time in a long while, that your complete self is accepted. But before you can fully step into that, before those relationships have room to form, there is something to do right now, and it does not require movement. It requires intention. I call it the release inventory. You can do it exactly where you are, without writing anything down or holding anything in your hands. Just reflect in 3 areas. First, what are you holding on to physically that belongs to your previous season? A place, a routine, a space you have outgrown but continue to turn out a habit rather than genuine need. Second, what are you holding on to in your relationships that you know, deep down, has already come to an end? Not who you wish would leave, but who you can quietly sense has completed their role in your life. Third, what are you holding on to internally that the next version of you cannot carry forward? A belief about yourself, a limitation you place based on your past, an identity shaped during survival that no longer reflects who you are becoming. You do not need to act on any of this immediately, but you do need to recognize it. Because you cannot receive something new while still tightly holding onto what belongs to the past. Now, let me shift to something I've been reflecting on while preparing this message, because there's a parallel in another story that speaks directly to where you are. Moses was someone who experienced multiple shifts in position. He moved from a palace to the wilderness, and from the wilderness to the edge of leading a nation to freedom. And each time, the repositioning came before the revelation. He did not receive his calling in comfort. He did not receive it in the city. He received it in the desert, in a quiet, stripped-down place that many would have seen as a detour. But that desert was not a delay. It was preparation. What was being formed in Moses during that time is similar to what is being formed in you right now. The people you are meant to influence, the opportunities you are meant to step into, the impact you are meant to carry into spaces that are waiting for you. All of it requires movement from where you currently are. And there is a message here for you. You are not being taken away from what you love. You are being repositioned toward what you were created for. And what you are created for is greater than what you are leaving behind. That is not just encouragement. It is reality. Stay with this. Because before this message ends, I want to leave you with something that will stay with you long after you step away from this moment. But first, there is a deeper layer to all of this. Something everything we have discussed has been building toward. Let's bring it all together. The instruction, prepare to move. The location, not just a place, but a new level, a different foundation for a version of you that cannot grow where you've been. The people, what is being cleared is not punishment. It is preparation. What will enter your life next will recognize you without needing explanation. All of this leads to one truth. You are not stepping into a new life. You are becoming a new person, and the life follows. Take a moment to absorb that, because many people approach this the wrong way. They wait for a new life to appear, so they can finally feel like a new version of themselves. They look for external change to confirm internal transformation. They stand at the edge waiting for certainty before moving forward. When in reality, the act of moving forward is a confirmation. The new place cannot support the old version of you. It is designed for someone different, someone you are in the process of becoming. The new people cannot fully connect with you if you are still presenting yourself through the identity of your past. The new opportunities cannot settle into your life if you are still operating from old patterns. Everything, the place, the people, the opportunities, the life itself, flows from one decision, the decision to become the person your next season requires before you fully arrive there. Now, let me make this even more practical by showing you what these blessings in a new season actually look like. The first type of blessing is access. There are opportunities in your next environment that you simply cannot see from where you currently stand. Not because they are not real, but because they are not visible from this position. They require closeness. You need to be in the right environment for the right opportunities to become clear. The reason certain paths have felt blocked, certain connections out of reach, certain possibilities as if they exist for others but not for you, is not because they were denied. It is because you've been standing in the wrong place. When you step into the right environment, what once seemed hidden becomes obvious. The second type of blessing is alignment. There is something that takes place when a person steps into the right position. It is a kind of ease that is not about life becoming simpler, but about moving with the current instead of constantly pushing against it. The same effort that once seemed to lead nowhere begins to produce results that feel far greater than expected. Not because you are doing less, but because you are now working in alignment. There's a story of fishermen who worked all night and caught nothing. Then came a single instruction to cast their net on the other side, and suddenly the net was full. Same water, same boat, same people, but a different position. That is alignment, and it is available to you, but it requires being in the right place. The third type of blessing is authority. There is a depth that forms in someone who has gone through difficult seasons and has not been broken by them. Not the loud display of confidence, but a quiet certainty, the kind that belongs to someone who has walked through hardship and emerged still standing, still moving forward, still trusting the voice that led them through it. That kind of authority cannot be created artificially. It cannot be imitated. It is formed in seasons exactly like the one you are in right now. And when you step into your next phase carrying it, people will recognize it before you even speak. Now, let me say something that brings all of this into perspective. You entered this season waiting to be recognized. You are leaving it as someone who recognizes. You entered asking for a sign. You are leaving as a sign. You entered seeking favor. You are leaving with the understanding that you were always favored. And the evidence was in your formation. You entered hoping the right people would find you. You are leaving as someone the right people were already meant to meet. You entered searching for a new life. You are leaving as the person that life was created for. This is not just a comforting way to look at things. It is the actual order of how it works. The life was already prepared. You were being prepared for the life. And there is a message here for you. You are not stepping into a new life. You are stepping forward as a new version of yourself. The life has always been yours. You are now ready to live in it. Now, let me define who you are in this season. Not who you are pretending to be. Not who you hope to become someday. But who you already are in this in-between phase. The space that feels uncertain but is actually full of transformation. You are a pioneer. The one who moves first. Not because no one is watching, but because someone who comes after you needs to see that it can be done. Your step forward is not only for you. It becomes proof for others. You are a bridge. You are being positioned between two realities, where you have been and where you are going. You carry something that connects both sides, something that could not exist without your journey. That is not random. That is purpose. You are a cycle breaker, patterns that have kept generations before you in the same place, whether in mindset, relationships, finances, or growth. And with your decision to move forward, this shift is not only personal, it carries impact beyond you. You are a guide. There are people in your next phase who are waiting, not passively, but with real need for someone to arrive and show a way forward, to open a path, to demonstrate what they cannot yet see. That person is you. You are not ahead of them in status. You are ahead in timing. You are a light bearer. The place you are moving toward carries a kind of challenge that only your specific growth has prepared you to meet. Not because you are above others, but because your experiences shaped you to bring clarity where it is needed. You're not going there randomly. You are going there because you are meant to. Take a moment and affirm it within yourself. I am here, not as a request, but as a decision. Because the moment you accept that identity, the way you carry yourself begins to change. Let me share something with you. There was a woman, 41 years old, who had lived in the same city for 7 years. She built a stable career, not extraordinary by common standards, but consistent, respected, and meaningful. For 3 of those years, she felt a quiet pull, not toward a specific destination, but away from where she was. She kept dismissing it. She told herself it was fear, immaturity, even a lack of gratitude for what she already had. Eventually, she decided to move. The first 6 months were extremely difficult, harder than staying would have been. A new city, no connections, no routine, no one who knew her. But she kept going. She kept showing up. She stayed present in the new environment, even when it felt empty. Then, gradually, and then all at once, things began to shift. The right people appeared. A sense of community formed without her forcing it. A professional opportunity opened from an unexpected direction. A relationship developed that could never have existed in her previous environment, because the version of her that relationship required had not yet existed there. She later shared that she had added certain practices into a routine to support her transition, but she was clear about one thing. The move itself changed everything. Everything else supported the process, but the shift in environment was what activated the change. She did not force a new life to happen. She placed herself where it could unfold, and it did. Now, before we move into the final part of this message, I want you to do something simple. Close your eyes, or just focus inward and imagine a doorway. It does not need to be detailed, just a threshold, an opening. Behind you is everything that has supported you up to this point. Every familiar face, every place you know deeply, every version of yourself that was shaped within that environment. All of it is real. All of it had meaning. All of it remains a part of your story. In front of you is light, not overwhelming, just steady and clear. You cannot yet see the entire space ahead. You can only see the light coming through the opening. Now, as you stand in that doorway, notice this. You are not lost. Even in this in-between space, with one chapter behind you and the next not yet fully visible, you are not without foundation. The threshold itself is your ground, and you are standing firmly on it. That is where you are right now, not in the place you are leaving, and not yet fully in the place ahead, but at the point of transition, standing at the edge of one of the most significant shifts of your life. And what I am about to share in this final part is exactly what you need to move forward. Before I close, I want to give you something practical. 3 simple actions that can shape how you enter your next season. These will determine whether you arrive as your new self or carry old patterns with you. I call this positioning for a new frequency, and it starts now, not later. The first practice is this. Speak your next season before it fully arrives. Each morning, before anything else defines your mindset, say it, either out loud or within your thoughts. I am ready. I am prepared. I am moving in alignment, not as a wish, but as a statement of direction, because your mind follows what you consistently tell it. If you begin your day repeating old narratives, then when change comes, it will feel unfamiliar. But if you rehearse the new version, you will recognize it when you step into it. The second practice is to protect your transition from being exposed to early. Not everything forming within you needs to be explained. Not every opportunity needs to be announced. Early stages of growth are sensitive. They need space. People who do not yet understand your direction may unintentionally disrupt what they cannot see clearly. So allow your growth to develop quietly. Let it become strong before it becomes visible. The third practice is to make decisions from your future position, not your past one. Whenever you face a choice about relationships, direction, or how you use your time, ask yourself, what would the version of me I am becoming choose right now? Not the version you used to be, not the one others expect, but the one already living in the next phase. Make that choice, even if it feels unfamiliar, especially if it feels unfamiliar. Now, I want to return to something mentioned earlier, a concept from neuroscience that connects directly to everything we have been discussing. Many people assume that when they change their external circumstances, location, environment, people, their internal state will automatically shift as well. Sometimes it does, but often it does not, because the brain operates on patterns. And if those patterns have been shaped by survival for a long time, they can continue even after the environment has changed. There's a specific brain state often referred to in neuroscience as the gamma state. It is strongest during childhood. In that state, learning is faster, intuition is sharper, and connections between ideas happen more naturally. What adults might call coincidence tends to occur more frequently, almost as if things are aligning on their own. Most people experience this more fully when they were younger. Over time, through pressure, responsibility, and adaptation, that state becomes less active. This is not a personal failure. It is something that happens broadly. But for individuals who were naturally more intuitive or aware early on, the difference between who they were and who they became can feel especially noticeable. Researchers have explored whether that state can be strengthened again later in life. Some have worked on methods to help people reconnect with more focused, intuitive, and responsive mental states. One approach that has emerged involves using structured audio patterns designed to influence brain activity, a process often referred to as brainwave entrainment. The idea behind it is simple. Certain sound frequencies can help guide the brain into more focused or relaxed states, depending on how they are used. But regardless of the method, the most important point is this. External movement alone is not enough. Real change happens when internal patterns shift along with external circumstances. You are not just changing where you are. You are changing how you think, how you respond, and how you show up. And that is what makes this transition real. This is not music in the usual sense. It is a set of carefully designed sound frequencies intended to guide the brain into the gamma state from the outside. It does not rely on the brain reaching that state by itself. It supports the process directly through what you hear, through headphones, using a biological pathway that does not depend on effort, discipline, or any specific belief system. 7 minutes, headphones on, eyes closed, and the brain begins to adjust. Now, let me be clear, because clarity matters more than persuasion. This is not a miracle solution. It does not replace the responsibility, awareness, or courage that this message has been pointing you toward. But it is a tool, a research-based tool for addressing something very real. There is often a gap between knowing you need to move forward and having a mind that is clear enough to move effectively. This is what many people experience during times of change. They recognize the direction, they feel the pull, but their thinking feels unclear. Decisions seem heavier than they should. The clarity needed to move forward becomes clouded by distractions that do not belong to this phase. That is not a spiritual failure. It is a mental state issue. And this type of tool is designed to help with that. The woman mentioned earlier, the one who moved at 41 and later found new connections, new opportunities, and a new relationship, described her experience in a simple way. She said it felt like adjusting a radio dial that finally locked onto a clear signal. The background noise did not disappear instantly, but it began to fade, and as it faded, her decisions became clearer. The right people became easier to recognize, and the things she had been seeking started appearing from directions she had not expected. That is what this kind of mental shift can look like when someone is already in motion. Now, let's talk about the practical side so you understand the full picture. Traditional clinical approaches that aim to influence brain activity, such as certain types of feedback-based therapies, can cost hundreds of dollars per session and usually require multiple sessions. Home-based equipment designed for similar purposes can be very expensive. Practices like long-term meditation can also lead to comparable outcomes, but they require time and consistency. Because of this, some researchers have worked on making simplified versions of these approaches more accessible outside of clinical environments. In this case, that resulted in a short audio-based method designed for ease of use. If you choose to explore something like this, it is important to approach it with awareness. There are many versions of similar content available online, and not all of them are based on structured or tested methods. Some are simply standard audio without any specific design behind them. So if you ever consider using tools like this, focus less on marketing claims and more on whether the method itself is credible and useful for you. But also remember this: no external tool replaces internal alignment. What truly matters is not just what you listen to, but how you think, how you decide, and how you act. Right now, there are people everywhere standing at a similar point in their lives. Different places, different stories, but the same moment of decision, the same quiet question: is it time? And for those who recognize themselves in this message, who feel that internal confirmation, the answer is yes. Now, let me close this in a grounded way with something meant to center you. Take a moment to acknowledge your journey. Every phase that brought you here, every period that felt like waiting but was actually preparation, every connection that played its role, even if it has now come to an end, every version of you that had to change so the next one could emerge. Even the difficult parts had purpose. Recognize, too, the unseen effort you have carried, the thoughts you worked through, the quiet decisions no one else noticed, the strength it took to keep moving forward, even when it was not obvious what came next. All of that matters. Now consider what you are ready to release. The identity tied to where you've been, connections that have already reached their natural conclusion, the guilt that comes with growing beyond what once felt right, the fear of stepping forward without having every answer. You do not need to hold on to those things to move ahead. You only need to take the next step. We released a version of you that was built in survival, honor for carrying you through, and now gently but firmly set down. We release the timeline you once planned and open ourselves to the one that is actually unfolding. We release the need for others to understand your calling before you follow it. We release the idea that this is escape, and we accept the truth. This is growth. Now we activate. We call forward a pioneer within you, the one who steps ahead so others can see what is possible. We call forward the bridge within you, the one placed between two worlds, able to connect what others cannot. We call forward the cycle breaker, the one through whom patterns of limitation come to an end. We call forward the guide, the one expected in the next phase by people who may not yet know your name, but are already waiting for your arrival. We call forward the light within you, the one shaped through experience to bring clarity where it is needed. Step fully into who you were created to be. We call into motion the right connections that are already aligned with your next phase, the people who will recognize who you are becoming, the opportunities already available in the place you are moving toward. the support already in motion, even if you cannot yet see it. Let it open fully. We protect this transition. We guard what is forming from being exposed too soon. We protect new connections from being influenced by old patterns. We keep the focus of the season clear from voices that cannot yet understand it. Let what is developing remain protected until it is strong enough to stand on its own. Now say this with intention, not quietly, but with certainty wherever you are. I am moving forward in alignment. I am prepared for people, the place, and the purpose meant for this season. I am not escaping. I am growing. I am not lost. I am being guided. I am not behind. I am exactly where I need to be, and I am moving ahead from here. Move toward yourself. Move toward the version of you that already exists on the other side of this transition, waiting for you to arrive fully. The life you are stepping into is not separate from you. It is created through your movement. Take a moment. Let this settle. Let it move from thought into something deeper, something you carry with you. Now move forward. If this message connected with where you are, take a moment to acknowledge it. There may be others who need to hear the same thing. People going through a quiet shift they have not yet been able to explain. And if you want to keep receiving messages like this, stay connected so that what you need finds you at the right time. You did not reach this point by accident, and you will not leave it unchanged. Move forward. The next phase is ready for you.